Hey guys, tonight we journey into one of the strangest, most unsettling chapters in human history. Imagine cobblestone streets filled with the sound of music, not from celebration, but from compulsion. Picture entire towns, gripped by a feverish force, unable to stop moving, twisting, leaping, collapsing. It begins with one woman stepping into the square and dancing uncontrollably. Within days, dozens join her, their faces pale with exhaustion, feet blistered and bleeding, yet unable to stop. There are no breaks, no rest, no explanation, just constant horrifying motion until death. You probably won't survive this dance. No one really did. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing which corner of the world you're relaxing in. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It started, they say, in the sweltering summer of 1518 in the city of Strasbourg. A woman known only as Frau Trophäa stepped out into the street and began to dance. There was no music, no festivity, no wedding or feast. She just moved. At first, her neighbors assumed it was a joke or a tantrum. Maybe she was possessed. Maybe she had gone mad. But she didn't stop. Not after minutes. Not after hours. Not even after the sun dipped below the rooftops and the heat of the day turned to muggy twilight. She danced through it all. People came to watch, curious and amused. But then came day two. She was still dancing, her limbs flailing in rhythmic convulsions, her eyes glazed, her mouth slack. By the third day, blisters had ruptured and bled through her shoes, and yet she kept going. Something dark, something beyond her control, had taken hold, and then others began to join her. First a handful, then a dozen, then scores. Within a week, nearly 400 people were dancing uncontrollably in the streets. Men, women, even children. They danced with frantic intensity, with tears running down their cheeks, mouths foaming, muscles trembling. Some screamed, some laughed manically. Many wept, though they didn't know why. The city buzzed with unease. At first the authorities were baffled, but Strasbourg had seen strange things before. Superstitions ran deep. Some whispered that it was divine punishment. Others blamed the devil. The clergy advised penance. The magistrates, ever pragmatic, decided that if the dancers must dance, they might as well do it properly. They cleared space in the grain market. They hired musicians. They built a stage. Maybe, just maybe, it would burn out faster if the dancers were given room to exhaust themselves. But it didn't help. The music only intensified the compulsion. The dancers moved faster. The rhythm seemed to possess them. Some collapsed from sheer exhaustion. Others died of heart attacks, strokes, or sheer physical breakdown. Death by dance, it became more than metaphor. The city descended into chaos, fear rippling through the community like a fever, and no one could explain it. Doctors had no answers. There were no signs of plague, no boils or coughs, no blood or rats. Just movement. Relentless, nightmarish movement. People tried herbal remedies. They tried bloodletting. They tried exorcisms. Nothing worked. The dancers kept dancing. Some tried to hold their loved ones back, tie them to bedposts, lock them in rooms. But the moment the restraints were undone, the afflicted would spring to their feet and resume the dance. This was no joyful jig. It was a torment. Faces twisted in pain. Bones shattered under the stress. Skin peeled. and still they danced. The stories made their way down the Rhine into neighboring cities. Fear spread with the tale. Was it a plague? Was it a curse? Was it contagious? And if so, how? Some began to whisper of ancient saints. Saint Vitus in particular, patron of dancers and epileptics. Was this his vengeance, his warning? Churches erected shrines. Priests conducted masses. Pilgrimages began. Still, the dancing continued. Even in the quiet hours of the night, when torches flickered and silence tried to settle, you could hear the shuffle of feet on stone, the gasps, the moans, the muffled sobs. The devil had not come in fire or disease. He had come with rhythm, and the people of Strasbourg were his marionettes. You begin to lose all sense of where one moment ends and the next begins. Day and night blur into a single fever dream. You walk through the streets of Strasbourg, and the dancers are everywhere, slumped against walls, twitching on church steps, dragging their scraped feet across the cobblestones in time to a tune only they can hear. It's not music you can name. It's not music you can follow. It's like the rhythm of something primal, ancient, buried, clawing its way out through flesh and muscle. The stench of sweat and blood clings to the alleys. Even the rats stay away. People stop asking why. They start asking who's next. You hear stories in hushed tones of a blacksmith who began twitching mid-hammer molten iron, forgotten as he twirled violently across his own workshop, shattering glass and splintering wood. Of a milkmaid whose feet were so raw they looked like boiled meat, and yet she still spun in place with her eyes rolled back in her head. Of a boy no older than 9 who danced himself right off a bridge. They say his body was still twitching in the river when they found it. No one feels safe anymore. You sleep lightly, waiting for the twitch to begin in your own toes. You imagine what it might feel like to be swept up in it, to be unable to stop. You press your feet to the floor at night, just to reassure yourself they still belong to you. And then come the rumors of witches gathering under moonlight, calling forth spirits with drums and chanting, of cursed harvests and poisoned bread, of dark winds from the Vosges mountains sweeping down with an invisible hand. Some say it's the stars. Some say it's the sins of the people. Everyone wants something to blame. But deep down you start to wonder, what if there is no cause? What if this is just part of being human? This terrible vulnerability to suggestion, this terrifying ability to lose control, you see it happen to someone you know, not a stranger, someone close. Maybe it's your sister, maybe your neighbor. They laugh nervously as their foot begins to tap. Just a little jig, they say, just a silly game. But within minutes, their face slackens, their knees bend, their arms begin to flail with that same strange cadence. You try to hold them, you try to plead with them, but it's as if they're not home anymore. The person you knew is buried beneath the rhythm, and the rhythm always wins. By now, the city has abandoned the idea of helping. The grain market is soaked in blood and sweat. The stage has been torn down. The musicians have fled their fingers, too blistered to play. The officials retreat behind closed doors, arguing over petitions and papal guidance. Doctors have gone silent. No one wants to be responsible for this anymore. And yet it spreads. Down the river, past the vineyards, into smaller villages. Dancers appear in alleyways and fields at the edges of forests. It's not just Strasbourg anymore. The affliction has become like wind, like fog, unseen, but undeniably present. You feel it in your bones, in the hairs on your neck. You look at your own hands and wonder if someday soon they'll betray you. Some say it's ergo, a fungus, a tiny writhing parasite that grows on rye and grains, especially after damp summers. When consumed, it infects the body like a curse. Hallucinations, tremors, seizures. They call it St. Anthony's fire. It burns from the inside out, warping the brain, distorting the flesh. It makes you dance without music. It makes you cry without reason. It makes you see the devil when no one else can. But then again, there are those who ate the same bread and felt nothing. Entire families who shared meals and only one began to spin. How could a fungus be so selective? Others believe in mass hysteria. The pressure of a brutal year, failed crops, rising prices, war drums pounding in the distance, disease always lurking at the edge of consciousness. Maybe the people of Strasbourg just snapped. Maybe it began with one troubled soul and grew like wildfire madness, leaping from mind to mind, not through blood, but through fear. You feel that fear. It creeps in slowly, like a crack in the wall. You find yourself swaying when there's no breeze, tapping your foot to nothing, hearing music in the squeak of cartwheels or the knock of your neighbor's broom. You convince yourself it's nothing, but the fear is there, always, waiting. And then there are those who embrace it. Yes, even in the midst of horror, there are the strange few who give in willingly, who walk into the square with open arms and begin to dance smiling as if they've found freedom. They say it lifts the soul, that it's like flying, like melting, like finally escaping the prison of the flesh. They speak of visions of colors and shapes and long-dead loved ones whispering in their ears. They say the pain is worth the ecstasy, but you watch them with hollow eyes. You see what happens after the first day, the way the smile warps into a grimace, the way their legs buckle their backs, arch their tongues dry and crack. You see them fall and seize froth and convulse. The ecstasy always ends, and death always comes. The city smells different now, less like bread and iron, more like rot. The gutters run red. The bells toll more often. And still the feet move, always moving. And still you listen. Somewhere faintly beneath it all, you swear you can hear the rhythm too. You stop trusting silence. It's not really silent anymore. Even when the streets are still, when the sky turns slate gray and rain patters on roof tiles, your ears hunt for it, the soft patter of bare feet, the dull thud of bodies falling, the ragged breath of someone caught mid-dance. And it's always there, just out of reach, like a drumbeat behind your ribs. You avoid the square. You don't need to see them anymore. You've already memorized the curve of their spines as they twist too far, the slack in their jaws, the way their hands flutter like broken birds. You've seen how they bleed. You've seen how they die. But the plague changes more than people's bodies. It changes their minds. Neighbors begin to turn on each other. Accusations slip through the streets like whispers on the wind. He must have cursed them. She always looked at the priest funny. That family never prayed. That boy stared too long at the moon. One by one, people dig up old superstitions like buried bones. The old women become powerful again, their stories suddenly gospel. They speak of cursed bloodlines, of haunted wells, of spirits that hide inside firewood and candle wax. You try to remain calm, logical, but it's harder when the world begins to twist like this, when even sunlight feels wrong and bread turns to dust on your tongue. You light a candle and the flame dances in a way that makes you uneasy. You see it, don't you, how it sways side to side, just like the afflicted, as if it knows something you don't. The city calls upon the saints once more. Priests and bishops lead long processions through the streets, robes fluttering incense thick in the air. They chant in Latin, swing thuribles like pendulums, and sprinkle holy water on everything that doesn't run away. They order pilgrimages to the shrine of Saint Vitus, far away in the Vosges. Maybe a journey of pain and penance will break the curse. Maybe confession will silence the rhythm. You watch them march by a line of solemn believers with aching feet and desperate eyes. And you can't help but wonder, what if the road itself dances too? What if they walk all the way to the mountains and never stop? What if they arrive only to collapse at the saint's feet, still moving, still possessed, and then comes something you didn't expect? Children start to dance. They're not laughing. They're not pretending. They are caught in the same strange trance, their small bodies shaking, twisting, trembling. They fall hard because they're too small to withstand the fury of it. And the parents are breaking. You see a man claw at the dirt in front of the cathedral steps, sobbing as he watches his daughter spin like a puppet with her strings tangled. You see a mother try to strap her son to a post with bed sheets, whispering lullabies until he chews through the fabric with bloodied teeth. You feel their grief so deeply it roots itself in your chest like a second heartbeat. Still, no one can stop it. The authorities finally ban music altogether. Drums, flutes, fiddles, even singing, it's all outlawed. They believe the sound feeds the affliction, that melody acts like oxygen on the fire. They silence the streets, shutter the taverns, burn instruments in great bonfires that crackle into the night. They even outlaw shoes with bells on them. But it's not enough. The rhythm doesn't need music. It has made a home inside the flesh. It plays from the inside now. And even in the silence, you swear you hear it louder than ever. You've started to dream of it. At first it's just flashes, feet pounding, a blur of red. A woman's face, wide-eyed, twirling past you again and again like a spinning coin. But then it grows more vivid. You hear the music. Not music you recognize, but something old, something wild. You feel your body begin to sway, even in sleep. You wake drenched in sweat sheets, twisted heart racing. And still, you're one of the lucky ones. You haven't joined them. Not yet. But the line between watcher and dancer gets thinner every day. You stand too long in one place and your knee twitches. You hear someone humming and realize the tune is coming from your own throat. You look at your reflection in a puddle and don't recognize your posture, your body slouched and tilted, as if it's preparing to move on its own. And then you meet the eyes of someone in the final stage. You find them in the alley near the marketplace, collapsed, but still twitching. Bones sharp under the skin, lips cracked. Their eyes meet yours, not pleading, not frightened, but resigned. As if to say, you'll know soon. You'll understand. And something inside you shatters. You turn and run. You run until your breath is ragged, until your muscles scream, until your legs refuse to carry you any farther. You collapse in the dark, shivering, curled like a child. You cry not because of the terror, but because you can feel the rhythm inside you now. It's faint like a thread tugging softly at your ribs. But it's there. You don't know how many have died. No one's counting anymore. Some are buried hastily. Others are left where they fall. The The city's grave diggers are overworked. The priests have stopped performing rites. It's no longer about honoring the dead, it's about surviving the living. And you wonder late at night how a world so ordered could unravel so completely. This was a time of structure, of religion, of guilds, of rules. A world where every hour had its bell, every man his trade, every woman her place. And now it feels like the rules no longer apply. You begin to understand the true horror isn't in the death or the twitching or the madness. It's in the loss of control. The body, your only constant turning against you. The mind, your sanctuary betrayed. The soul who knows. Maybe it slipped out days ago. Maybe that's why the dancers look so hollow. And in the end, that's the scariest part. You don't know if this will ever end. You begin to mark the days by the sounds. The muffled shuffle of feet before dawn. The low moaning that creeps in with the mist. The sudden thud of a body hitting stone. You no longer need bells or candles to know the hour your internal clock syncs itself to the rhythm of collapse. Every sound in Strasbourg now lives in service to the plague. You wake with it. You eat with it. You go to bed with it pounding faintly against your ribs. But you don't dance. Not yet. You've learned to avoid the hot zones. There are entire blocks where no one dares go anymore. Narrow lanes where the cobblestones are black with dried blood, where windows have been boarded from the inside, where the only movement comes from the shadows of those still twitching in doorways. You call them the hollow zones. Not even dogs roam there now. But it spreads even without footsteps. The fear itself is its own kind of contagion. You see it in the way people avert their eyes from one another. No one lingers. No one hugs. No one sings. Conversations have shrunk to whispers and nods, truncated and brittle. There are no good mornings anymore. Only quiet glances and shared dread. Everyone is waiting for someone else to twitch first. A silence that is not peaceful but anticipatory. You find yourself drawn to the cathedral not out of faith but desperation. The building is cold and massive, its vaulted ceilings echoing back your heartbeat tenfold. The smell of wax and old incense still lingers, clinging to the stones like ghost perfume. You sit at the edge where the candlelight can't quite reach you and watch the others. They kneel, they plead, they beg in languages only grief understands. And overhead, high in the arches, stone angels look down with blank faces, silent, still, unmoved. You wonder what they see when they look at you. One of the priests has stopped preaching. You notice it one afternoon. He just stands there at the pulpit, lips parted, but no words coming out. His hands tremble slightly. Not enough for most to notice, but you do. A slow, rhythmic pulse just at the edge of stillness. You never see him again after that. A rumor spreads that he was locked in the crypt beneath the altar, dancing between sarcophagi until he collapsed. Another version says he disappeared into the hills searching for a cure. A third claims he never existed at all, that he was an omen sent by the plague to witness its own performance. You believe all three, because by now truth has become elastic. What matters isn't whether something is real, but whether it feels real, whether it pulls at your gut in the same way the rhythm does. Your dreams have become surreal landscapes of spinning figures and weeping statues. Faces of strangers stare at you, mouths wide with silent laughter, limbs moving in jerky loops. Even when you're awake, you sometimes feel the floor tilt beneath you like a stage about to collapse. Some say the plague has a sound, a hidden tone that only the afflicted can hear. Like a hum beneath the city, a vibration that seeps up through the stone and into the blood. They say it resonates deep in the bones like the echo of some forgotten hymn. That if you stand perfectly still and listen closely, you'll hear it too. One day you try. You go out to the riverbank just as the sun is setting, far from the city center, far from the groans and gasps. You stand barefoot on the muddy ground. The wind is still, the water slow, and you listen. At first, nothing. Then, something. A pressure behind the ears. A soft pulse beneath the soil, not music. Not exactly. More like a suggestion. A beckoning. Your toes flex without meaning to. Your jaw tightens. You breathe shallow. You run home. That night you don't sleep. You lie still under your blanket, hands gripping the mattress, as if you're afraid your body will get up without you. Your feet feel hot. Not feverish, just warm. Almost itchy, like they want to move. You bite down on your own knuckle to stay awake. In the morning, you drag yourself to the market. What's left of it anyway? Most stalls are closed, the fruit rotting in piles. But you need to see someone, anyone living. Still. Ordinary. And you find her an old woman with a crooked spine and cloudy eyes seated beside a basket of shriveled onions. She smiles without teeth and tells you this has happened before. Not just here. Not just now. She speaks of old stories from the Black Forest from centuries past. Of villages struck by waves of uncontrollable movement. Of processions of the mad dancing into the sea. Of entire convents seized by laughter, then movement, then silence. She says the earth remembers. That sometimes it breathes in a strange way. And when it does, the sensitive among us move with it. You don't ask what sensitive means. You just thank her and back away slowly. That evening, the wind returns. Not a storm, just a breeze. And with it, the dancers surge again, as if summoned, as if commanded, as if something in the air flipped a switch they cannot resist. You watch from a rooftop, peering between broken tiles. Below, their limbs flail and fold their torsos, convulse their faces, painted with a terror so deep it becomes blankness. No one tries to stop them anymore. Even the guards have stopped dragging bodies away. You realize something awful. People have started to treat the dancers like part of the city itself, like pigeons or moss or smoke. Just another thing that exists in Strasbourg now. Something to ignore or step around or endure. You feel a chill that doesn't come from the wind. Because once a horror becomes normalized, it becomes invisible. And once it's invisible, it can grow. Unchallenged, unopposed, unnoticed. The dancers no longer have names. In the beginning, you knew them. Frau Trophäa, the cobbler's apprentice, the girl from the dye house with the ribbon in her braid. But as the days unspool and the count rises, names fade. They become the dancers, the afflicted, the cursed. They're referred to in groups now, not as individuals. A few more fell in the guild quarter. 2 collapsed by the tannery. 3 danced into the river. And it's not just memory that abandons them, it's identity. Their faces change. Eyes sunken, cheeks, hollow mouths locked open as if trying to scream, but forgetting how. You pass them sometimes lying in the gutter, or half folded over a bench, twitching in slow loops. There's something inhuman in their gaze now. Not animal, not dead, just absent. like their bodies are still here, but whatever was them has stepped out for a moment and forgotten to come back. You keep telling yourself you're different. You've stayed sharp. You've eaten when you could. You've forced yourself to speak aloud every day, to say your name, to count your fingers, to pray, even if you don't believe anymore. Anything to remain tethered. Anything to stay inside your own mind. But it gets harder. The days are indistinguishable now. The sky shifts between white and gray. The light feels heavy, like it's pressing down on the rooftops instead of illuminating them. You wake up unsure of what day it is, what season you're in, how long it's been since it all began. It could be weeks. It could be months. Time has become another dancer whirling out of reach. One afternoon, a man throws himself into the ill river. Not a dancer, just a man. A teacher, they say. Someone whose family had remained untouched. Someone who had never even witnessed the plague up close. He simply stood up from his bench, walked to the riverbank, and stepped in. No drama, no farewell, just gone. You hear that in his pocket was a note that said, "I can't hear silence anymore." And you understand. Because even when all is still, even when the streets are deserted and the wind has stopped, the city hums. Not with sound, not with voices, but with pressure, with expectation. Like the stones themselves are holding their breath, waiting for the next tremor to begin. A scholar from Basel arrives, or claims to be one. He wears robes with blue trim and speaks in long, careful sentences. He brings with him books thick with Latin script and marginal drawings, ancient plagues, mad dancers, illustrations of figures contorted into impossible poses. He lectures in the cathedral square. He says, "This is no disease. This is no divine punishment. This is psychogenic, a crisis of the soul, not the body, a failure of the collective mind." People listen. They nod. They ask questions. And 2 days later, he begins to dance. Right in the middle of a sentence, mid-word, his eyes glaze, his knees buckle, and he crumples into motion. His hands flutter like dying birds. His feet jerk across the stone in uneven bursts. He tries to keep speaking to maintain dignity, but the words come out backwards, upside down, inside out. He collapses at the foot of the fountain, limbs flailing like ropes caught in a current. They carry him away. You don't see him again. You wonder privately if he ever really was a scholar, or if the plague just used him as a vessel to speak through, to tease you with the illusion of sense. You begin noticing patterns. It's not just random, you think. There's a rhythm to it, a cycle. The dancers rise like a tide every few days, swelling, crashing, receding. You mark it down with charcoal on your wall, days of calm, days of frenzy. It's almost lunar, like the moon itself is pulling at people's nerves like puppet strings. You wonder what would happen if the full moon fell on a market day. If the plague would swell so large, the city would split open. You don't want to know. Children have begun copying the dancers, mocking them, pretending playing plague in alleyways. You hear their giggles echo down corridors, the slap of their feet mimicking the real thing. Parents scold them sharply, too sharply, with voices brittle with fear. It's not funny. Not anymore. But children always imitate what they don't understand. And secretly, you're terrified one of them won't be pretending. You see less and less of your neighbors. Windows are shuttered. Doors stay closed. Chimneys no longer smoke. It's as if the city is closing in on itself, folding like parchment. You forget what normal sounded like. Laughter, conversation, hammers on anvils. bells. Now the only bell is the morning bell, and even that tolls less frequently either from exhaustion or indifference. One day you find a single shoe in the street, a dancer's shoe torn at the sole, soaked with blood. You pick it up without thinking, and your hands begin to tremble. Not from plague, from rage. Rage that this is all that remains of someone. Not a body, not a name. Just this worn-out vessel for movement. You throw it as far as you can, but it doesn't make a sound when it lands. Even the earth, it seems, has grown tired of absorbing grief. You hear someone suggest burning the afflicted. Not out of cruelty, they say, but mercy, to prevent more suffering, to purify the city. You don't know if they mean it. You don't know if they're serious. But the fact that no one gasps, no one argues, no one cries out in horror, that's what frightens you most. People are becoming numb. Because the plague isn't just in the dancers, it's in all of you now. In the silence, in the fear, in the resignation. The plague has stopped needing feet. It has found new homes in the heart. You try not to think about it, but your body won't let you forget. The ache in your calves when you rise, the twitch in your fingers when you reach for bread, the sudden shortness of breath when there's no reason for panic. Each tiny rebellion of the body becomes suspect. You've learned not to speak of it. The last time someone mentioned feeling lightheaded, they were tied to a chair for their own safety and left in a locked pantry until the twitching started, or maybe it didn't, but no one checked again. So you lie. To them. To yourself. You say you're fine. You smile at the butcher. You nod at the priest. You press your lips tight and walk with your arms stiff at your sides to keep your balance from betraying you. Every step is a negotiation now. Not just where to go, but how to keep yourself from losing rhythm to something inside you. Something subtle. Sneaky. You're not even sure if it's real. But you've learned this plague doesn't begin with grand gestures. It starts small like a sigh that never ends. There are still fools who treat it like a spectacle. They gather at the edges of the afflicted zones, standing behind barrels or carts, pretending not to stare. They speak in hushed tones about the grace of one dancer's movements, or the violence of another's full. A man even sketches them chalk drawings in a leather-bound book. You see one once. A woman mid-spin, her spine arched back so far it looks broken, mouth open, eyes wild. The caption reads, La grâce du tourment, the grace of torment. He says he's documenting history, but it feels more like theft, like he's capturing what should never be preserved. One night he's found sprawled near the fountain, his notebook clutched tight, limbs spasming in silence. The sketches stop. You keep a small pouch of herbs tied to your belt, now sage, rue, lavender. You don't know if it helps, but it gives your hands something to hold when they start to tremble. The scent grounds you, reminds you that you're still here, still solid, still whole, at least for now. A traveler arrives from the east, a woman with wild gray hair and a walking stick etched with strange symbols. She's called a healer, though others say she's a fraud, or worse, a witch. You watch her walk through the afflicted quarter barefoot, her robes dragging through the blood and dust. She hums not music, not exactly. A single low note held so long it starts to feel like a vibration. Her presence quiets the square. No one interrupts her. Later that night, you hear whispers that she stayed among the dancers and came out unscathed. that she laid her hands on a woman who hadn't stopped moving for 11 days, and the woman dropped limp into her arms like a child. That her voice holds a counter-rhythm, one strong enough to break the spell. The next morning you find her hut burned to ash. No one claims responsibility, but you smell the fear in the smoke, because hope is dangerous too. If something can cure the dancing, then it means something caused it. And if something caused it, then someone can be blamed. Blame is easier to live with than mystery. You spend more time by the river now. It's quieter there. The wind feels clean. The trees haven't learned to shudder like the rooftops do. Sometimes you pretend the city is just a memory that you've always lived here, among the reeds and the flowing current untouched. But the illusion never lasts. Not when you see a shoe floating downstream. Not when you hear a scream echo from the far bank and know exactly what it means. The dancers have reached the forests. You hadn't thought it possible. You'd imagined them as bound to the city like vines to stone. But the compulsion knows no walls. A boy from a woodland village stumbles into town with bleeding feet and a wild look in his eye. He hasn't stopped for 2 days, they say. He bites anyone who comes close. The mayor calls for quarantine, but it's too late. The dancers are spreading not just outward, but inward into the dreams of the countryside, into the still places where time moves slower. You wonder if somewhere in a quiet cabin, a farmer's wife is swaying to an invisible melody, her family watching with growing dread. And it's not just the movement that haunts you now. It's the stare. You've seen it often right before someone begins. A sudden stillness. A gaze that cuts through the world as if it's searching for something beyond your sight. And then, the shift. As if the soul flinches just for a second, and the rhythm steps in to fill the void. You see it in a baker's boy no older than 10 delivering bread. He stops mid-step, basket in hand, and looks upward. His head tilts. His shoulders twitch. And you know, before he even moves, you know. You look away. You can't bear to watch another one go. You wonder if music would still help. Not the music that feeds the frenzy, but something else, something slow, deep, ancient. The kind that rocks bones instead of skin. The kind that mothers hum to sleeping children. Could that drown out the rhythm? Could that undo what the other tones have built? But the silence remains law. And in the absence of melody, the rhythm has become more clever. It lives now in footsteps, in heartbeat, in the crackle of a fire. You begin to understand why some plug their ears with wax, why others blindfold themselves at dusk, as if to block even the light that might carry movement into their bones. You meet a man who has not moved in 3 days. He sits in perfect stillness inside a chalk circle of his own making. He claims he's resisting the call that every breath he takes is a battle. You ask what it feels like. He whispers, like being underwater while your body begs to swim. And then he weeps without moving a muscle. You don't speak again. That night you lie awake clutching your herb pouch, listening to your own heartbeat, steady, slow, slightly offbeat. You try to convince yourself that's normal, that you're imagining the syncopation. But deep down, you know the rhythm is patient. It doesn't need you to believe. It only needs you to listen. You think about running, not from the plague, from the rhythm. You fantasize about it slipping through the city gates at dawn, past the sleeping guards, and the empty watchtowers through the fog that rises off the meadows. You picture the road stretching out ahead of you, silent and dry, dotted with blackbirds and wheel tracks. A place where no one dances. a place where your footsteps are your own. But then you remember what the old woman said about the earth remembering, about the breath of the land shifting. And you wonder, what if it follows? What if the rhythm is not bound to place but to people? What if it's inside you already, so you stay? And every day you remain, the city becomes less like a home and more like a performance, a grotesque theater of repetition. The dancers are the actors, the rest of you the audience, the witnesses, silent, exhausted, complicit. You realize how many words have fallen out of daily use. Joy, future, tomorrow. Even love sounds strange in the mouth now. People speak in present tense survival bred. Cold stop, please. Whole ideas, hope, mercy, redemption begin to feel like luxuries. And without those words, your thoughts shrink, curling into themselves like dying leaves. You start writing again. Nothing elaborate. Just lists, observations, a line or two in charcoal on the underside of a broken crate you've dragged into your attic. You note things like, third dancer fell into the well today. The woman at the tannery hums even in her sleep. My right foot tingled for 6 seconds. It helps, a little. Like building a dam out of pebbles. Ineffective but purposeful. And sometimes it's enough to keep the flood back just a little longer. Then one morning something strange happens. The dancers pause. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly. One stops mid-step and collapses. Another just freezes, staring blankly at her hands. You stand on your rooftop and watch as a strange hush falls over the square. Not silence, but stillness. The kind of stillness that feels louder than screams. And for one moment, you feel the city hold its breath. Then a sound, sharp, sudden. A single note played on a flute. High, piercing, wrong. And the dancers move again. Not like before. Worse. This time it's jagged, violent, as if their bodies are rebelling against the music, but are still forced to follow. Their limbs jerk at unnatural angles. A woman's shoulder pops audibly. A man's ankle bends in a way that makes people flinch. Whoever played that note is never found. But some swear it was a child. Others say it was no one at all, that the flute played itself. You don't believe either. Or maybe you believe both. By now, your understanding of reality is less like a map and more like a fogged mirror. You see shapes, you see motion, but nothing clear. And then the floodgates open again. A fresh wave of dancers overtakes the city. This one more brutal than the last. The afflicted don't last days anymore. Some last hours. You see a man collapse with foam at his mouth less than 3 hours after he began. A young mother breaks both knees, but still tries to drag herself along the church floor weeping. The plague is accelerating. You begin to wonder if it's evolving, if it has learned. What if it was testing limits before pacing itself, exploring thresholds? Now it no longer needs patience. Now it knows exactly how much you can take, and how fast it can break you. Your thoughts grow darker. You begin to prepare, not for death, not even for survival, for something else, for surrender. You gather your belongings and strip them down to essentials, water-dried apples, a knife, the herb pouch, your journal. You tie it all in cloth and hide it under the floorboards. You don't know why. Maybe in case someone else finds it. Maybe in case the you that returns isn't you anymore. You sit by the window and watch a boy dance in the rain. He's soaked filthy, laughing or screaming, you can't tell. His arms spin like windmills, his feet splashing muddy arcs around him. No one intervenes. No one even watches, not really. It's just accepted. Background. And something inside you snaps. You throw open the shutters. You shout. Words you haven't used in weeks. Stop, help, please, it doesn't matter. He can't hear you. Or he doesn't want to. You run down the stairs, out into the street, into the mud. And then you freeze. Not because of the rain, or the boy, or the fear, but because your own feet begin to pulse. A tiny movement, a flick, a tickle in your arches. You stare down and feel the blood drain from your face. You clench your toes, hard. It stops. You breathe. The boy collapses. You carry him to the cathedral steps. He doesn't resist. He doesn't speak. Just trembles in your arms like a bird that has forgotten how to fly. His skin is ice. You stay there long after the bells ring, until the light shifts, until your hands stop shaking. And that night, when you finally return home soaked and silent, you say aloud to no one, "I won't dance," like a prayer or a curse. But prayers are tricky things. Sometimes they echo back at you warped. Other times they vanish into the dark without a sound. You said you wouldn't dance, and for a few days it seems to hold. The twitch in your foot doesn't return. The dreams quiet down. You sleep through the night, though, fitfully. And you convince yourself, maybe, just maybe, you've escaped the rhythm's reach. Then comes the wind. Not the playful kind that stirs curtains or shakes tree branches. No, this wind is low and steady. It doesn't gust, it hums. You hear it first in the chimney, a soft whooshing that builds slowly like breath exhaled by something enormous and patient. Then you feel it in the floorboards, in your spine, in the spaces between your teeth. It's not cold, not warm. It's curious. It feels like it's listening. You sit motionless on your cot, hands gripping your knees, and you swear the wind is singing. Not in words, not in melody, but in rhythm, that rhythm. The one that hides in coughs and footsteps and heartbeat. The one the dancers move to. The one that haunts the city like a ghost in the stone. It's in the wind now. And the moment you realize this, you understand you haven't escaped anything. The rhythm has simply been waiting. You try not to move. You barely breathe. But your eyes betray you. They track the flicker of a candle. And for just a moment, your shoulder follows. A tiny sway, as if dancing could start in the eyes alone. You grab the edge of the table and hold, hard. The candle sputters out. The next morning, the city is quieter than usual. Too quiet. You step out into a street that feels more like a corridor, walls tall and echoing shadows longer than they should be. No one speaks. A few doors creak open just wide enough for faces to peek through. You see people nod. Not in greeting. In confirmation. As if everyone feels it. Something's changed. The dancers have moved. You find their trail like a stain across the cobblestones. Smears of blood. A discarded shawl. A cracked instrument, its strings snapped and tangled. And then you reach at the bridge. They're all there. Not dancing, but standing. Hundreds of them. Lined across the bridge and spilling down into the riverbanks. Silent. Breathless. Staring into the sky. Their feet are blistered. legs trembling, bodies exhausted, but they're still, like statues of themselves, waiting. You don't approach. No one does. You watch from a distance, heart pounding. Then, as if cued by some invisible signal, they all step forward just 1 foot. The same foot. The same beat. A wave of movement that flows down the bridge like a shiver. Then another step, and another. A slow march, perfectly synchronized toward the far side of the river. It's not dancing anymore. It's procession. You whisper, "Where are they going?" No one answers. By dusk, they're gone, disappeared into the fog that rolls in off the fields. No screams, no collapses. Just the rhythmic shuffle of feet fading into the distance. And you're left behind. Part of you is relieved. Part of you is devastated. Because even in your horror, they had become familiar. Like a storm that never ends. You hate it, but you learn to breathe around it. And now with them gone, you feel the space they've left behind. A terrible emptiness. But the wind hasn't left. It curls around chimneys and whispers through shutters. It moans through the cathedral rafters. It finds your ear even as you bury yourself under blankets and pray to saints you stopped believing in months ago. And then come the imitators. In the days after the Exodus, people begin to dance again. Not in plague, but in mimicry. A group of women in the marketplace spin slowly in circles, whispering chants that don't rhyme. Children stomp their feet in sequence outside the bakery. A man walks backward down an alley with his eyes closed, humming the sound of the wind. It spreads quickly. Not compulsion, choice, or something that looks like choice. You ask a neighbor why she's twirling in her garden, and she smiles, serene, glassy-eyed, and says, "It makes the voices clearer." She's not even trying to be cryptic. To her, it makes perfect sense. You begin to realize that the rhythm didn't vanish. It evolved, before it came uninvited. Now people invite it in. They open their windows to it. They lean into it. They crave it. Because even terror becomes a kind of order. And in a world that no longer offers answers, rhythm feels like a language. A cruel one. But still a language. One night you find yourself rocking in your chair. Not to music. Just to silence. Just to something inside you. You stop instantly. You bite the inside of your cheek until it bleeds. And still you want to move again. Not much. Just a nod. Just enough to feel in sync. You pace your room all night repeating your name, your birthday, your mother's face, the names of flowers, lines of psalms, the names of the dead. Anything to anchor yourself. Anything to keep you inside. And then morning comes. You step outside and see chalk marks on the door across from yours, strange loops and spirals. A signal, a warning, or an invitation. You don't knock, you don't speak. You retreat inside and slide the bolt across your own door. And still the rhythm waits. Just outside the threshold. Tapping. Patient. Endlessly patient. You start to notice the cracks. Not just in buildings, though. There are plenty of those plaster flaking bricks shifted ever so slightly, stones splintered at the corners. No, the real cracks are in people. In their minds. In the stories they tell themselves to stay sane. A baker insists the dancers were angels. That the rhythm was a divine language misunderstood by sinful ears. He wears white robes now embroidered with ash. He hasn't baked a loaf in weeks. Instead, he writes hymns, hundreds of them, each one more frantic than the last. A midwife claims it's in the blood, that the rhythm is hereditary, passed from womb to womb. She's begun draining small vials from pregnant women, burying them under the moon. She says it's to protect the unborn. A young girl speaks only in numbers. She's not afraid, just distant, detached, as if language has betrayed her and numbers are all that remain. You overhear her counting sometimes 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, faster, slower, backwards, in rhythm, always in rhythm. You tell yourself you're different, that you still think clearly, that you still resist. But your reflection says otherwise. There's a stiffness in your posture now, a guardedness in your movements, like every gesture is overcorrected. You've become too aware of your own body. You feel every step, every blink, every breath, like you're a marionette holding your own strings, terrified to let go. You consider leaving again, really leaving. Not just the fantasy, not just packing a satchel in your mind, actually walking out through the fields into the next valley. But every time you gather your courage, something stops you. A figure standing at the end of the lane, swaying in place. A drumbeat, faint but unmistakable, echoing through the hills. A child barefoot and bleeding, smiling too widely. The plague is no longer confined to the city. It's leaking into the land. You hear tales now from travelers, tales of other outbreaks. In towns you've never seen, villages with names like prayers or curses. People dancing in wheat fields, collapsing in chapel aisles, spinning beneath oak trees, until their feet carve circles into the dirt. It's not just Strasbourg anymore. It never was. You begin to realize this was never about one woman stepping into the street. That was only the flashpoint, the match. The kindling had been piling for years, maybe decades, maybe centuries. Fear, hunger, guilt, repression, all of it feeding into a single shared fracture. And then the music began. You sit in your attic one night writing. It's all you have left that feels safe. You record everything, the sounds, the visions, the numbers, the names. You write until your fingers cramp, and then you write with your non-dominant hand. But somewhere around midnight, the ink begins to smear. Not from your hand, from the tremor in the floor. You hold still. So still. But it's there. The pulse. Like a great heartbeat beneath the boards. Slow. Measured. Irresistible. You close the book. And you wait. The tremor passes. For now. The next day you find the cathedral doors wide open. They've been closed for weeks, ever since the priests fled or fell. But now they yawn open like a mouth mid-scream. You step inside cautiously. The air is cold and metallic like breath on a knife blade. The pews are mostly empty, save for a few bundles of cloth and a small pile of bones someone tried to pretend wasn't human. But the altar is different. There are flowers there now, fresh ones, red and white, woven into tight bundles with strips of linen, placed carefully, lovingly, as if someone had been praying. And behind them a single word scratched into the marble with a blade dance. You stumble backward, trip over a loose tile. Your hand strikes the floor hard. Your wrist aches, but your feet remain still. That night, you dream again. It's always the same now. You're standing in the market square empty, except for you and a figure in the distance too far to make out. You try to run, but your legs won't move. Instead, the stones beneath your feet shift, tilt, spin, and then you realize you're the one dancing. The figure is clapping slowly, rhythmically. You wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, and clawing at your bed sheets like a drowning man reaching for the shore. You stare at the ceiling for a long time. Then you whisper, "I'm still here." Because you need to hear it said aloud. You're still here. But for how long each day brings something new now? One morning it rains ash. Not much, just a few flakes, from where no one knows. But they drift down onto rooftops and settle on tongues like bitter snow. Another day the sun rises red, not orange, not pink, blood red. And it stays that way for hours, turning shadows into veins, turning faces into masks. The city stops moving entirely that day, not out of fear of the plague, but fear of the sky. You watch it all from your window, and you begin to wonder, what if this isn't a plague? What if this is a test? Or worse, what if it's an invitation? You don't answer it. Not yet. But the floor still pulses. The air still hums. And deep in your bones, something waits. You try not to count days anymore, but your mind does it anyway. It marks time in strange ways by how many candles you've burned, how many meals you've skipped, how many new twitchers you've seen. You remember when it was 10 dancers, then 40, then hundreds. Now, it's different. The number doesn't matter anymore. The dancers are not a crowd, they're a condition, a phenomenon, a law of nature that's taken root like gravity or decay. And gravity, you've noticed, feels heavier lately. Even walking takes effort. Your joints resist. Your arms want to stay close to your sides as though they're bracing for something. You imagine they know what's coming. That somewhere inside your muscles a memory is forming a rhythm not yet awake but pulsing faintly beneath the skin. You press your hands flat against the wall, trying to feel if it's moving. It always feels like it is. At night the quiet isn't silent anymore. You hear soft things, scuffing, dragging, a whisper that might be your own breath, or might be something brushing across the roof. Your ears strain. Your heart stumbles a beat. You dare not light a candle, because you know if you move too suddenly, the rhythm might see you. It might take that as a signal that you're ready. You aren't. Outside, a new symbol has begun appearing, painted in coal on doorways, scratched into bark, smeared in blood on shutters. It's a spiral, uneven and jagged with a single dot in the middle. You see it first on the weaver's shop, then on the apothecary's, then on the well. No one talks about it, but everyone sees it. You watch a man approach one of the marked doors. He places his forehead against it and hums not a song, but a vibration low and steady. His hands twitch. His neck snaps slightly to the side. And then he leaves walking in tight, straight lines, each footfall precisely spaced. You don't see him again. You try to wipe one of the symbols away. Just once. Just to test it. It doesn't come off. Not completely. You scrub with water, with vinegar, with oil, and a cloth. But the spiral remains faintly etched, as if it was never truly drawn, but grown from the material itself. That's when you stop touching things, and when the letters arrive. You wake to find a piece of folded parchment outside your door, weighted by a stone. You open it slowly, expecting scripture or threats. But instead, it's a map, hand-drawn, charcoal, smudged at the corners. It shows the city or a version of it distorted, spiraling inward like a maze. At the center, a black circle. No words, no names, just the map and the spiral. And a single word written beneath soon. You don't know who sent it, or how they placed it there without waking you. But you keep it. You fold it carefully, slide it beneath the floorboards with your journal and your herb pouch. You tell yourself it's just superstition, a prank. But a part of you, a deeper part, the part that counts footsteps and listens for pulses, knows it's not. It's a warning. Or maybe an invitation. You start watching the sky. It has changed. The clouds move too quickly, or not at all. The moon feels larger. The stars have rearranged themselves not into new constellations, but into something more erratic, more rhythmic. You swear one night they pulse, all at once, just once, like a blink. And beneath that sky, the city begins to transform, not in shape, in behavior. The people have become theatrical. They speak in strange cadences. Some walk in circles before stepping into shops. Others tap the doorframe 3 times before entering. You catch a child pouring milk onto the steps of a shrine, her mouth moving in silent incantation. And no one corrects her. It's like they've all decided that logic doesn't work here anymore. That if madness is the new law, they might as well learn to speak its language. You resist, but resistance now feels like holding your breath underwater. You can do it for a while. But eventually, something inside you begs to exhale. The spiral appears on your own wall. One morning, it's just there, above your cot, faint but unmistakable. You didn't draw it. You didn't invite it. But somehow it came anyway, as if the room had been infected by proximity alone. You stare at it for hours. You consider burning the wall. But deep down, you're afraid of what might rise from the ashes. So instead, you cover it with cloth. And every morning you check. It's still there. Sometimes darker. Sometimes fainter. Sometimes pulsing not with light, but with suggestion. And one night, when you've reached your limit, you whisper to it. Why me? There's no answer. Just the sound of footsteps outside. Rhythmic. Measured. Getting closer. You don't breathe. The footsteps stop at your door. A pause. Then a single knock. No one speaks. No one leaves. Just silence. And then another knock, softer this time. Not asking permission, just echoing. You press your back to the wall and wait until the sun rises. When you open the door, there's nothing there. But the spiral has been drawn on the threshold now. Larger, bolder. You step over it, very carefully. And that day, for the first time, you walk without knowing where you're going. Not running, not searching, just moving. In rhythm. Just a little. Just enough. You tell yourself it's just a walk. That you needed air. That you needed to feel something besides fear and dust. But your feet know better. They take you down streets you haven't walked in months. Through alleys where shutters are nailed shut, and every stone echoes with memory. You try to stop twice, but your legs keep moving. Not fast, not erratic, just steady, just rhythmic. You pass others in the street. Not many. They're all walking too. Same pace, same silence. Some carry nothing. Others grip objects tight to their chests. A candlestick, a broken spoon, a bundle of withered flowers. They don't look at you. They don't need to. You're all headed to the same place, and you don't even know where that is. You try to speak, just to hear your voice, but no sound comes out. You try again, nothing. It's as if the silence has wrapped itself around your throat, not choking you, just muffling you. Like thick wool pressed against your lips. You can breathe. You just can't break the rhythm. You round a corner and see the square. It's full. Not packed, but full in a way that feels wrong. People spaced precisely standing, shoulder-width apart. Hands at their sides, eyes fixed forward. You stop at the edge. You don't step into the square, but you feel the pull. Like the spiral has finally found its center. At the far side stands a figure. You can't see their face. Cloaked, hooded, motionless. Yet somehow you know they're watching. Not just the crowd. You, directly. Their head tilts slightly just once as if to say, now. And the music begins, but there are no instruments, no drums, no strings, no flutes. Just feet, dozens of them, stepping in unison. 1, 2, 1, 2, turn, 1, 2, step. The square becomes a machine, a choreography of flesh and desperation. Some cry as they move, some grit their teeth. Others wear blank expressions, their minds clearly far away, or maybe not present at all. You feel your toes twitch. The rhythm is so familiar now, it hurts. You press your back against the cold stone wall, digging your fingernails into your palms, whispering to yourself nonsense words, anything to drown out the cadence. You make it back home. You don't remember the path, only the sound your feet made, the quiet, even rhythm. Not dancing, not exactly, but close enough. You vomit in the corner and cry until your ribs ache. That night you try to sleep, but the spiral is there in your dreams, yes, but also in the grain of the wood, in the pattern of your breath, in the drip, drip, drip from the eaves. Everything moves in rhythm now, even your thoughts. The next day, the city feels changed, not quieter, not louder, just settled. As if something large has shifted, like the turning of a clock or the start of a performance after the final bell. The dancers aren't hiding anymore. They move through the streets like citizens, like they belong. No one runs. No one gasps. No one stops them. Acceptance is its own kind of madness. You overhear a woman whisper to her son, "Don't look directly at them." It invites them. You remember being a child and hearing something similar, but it was about wolves. You begin tracking your movements. Each time your foot lifts, you log it. When your hand taps the table in idle thought, you make a mark. When your breath aligns with the footsteps outside, you scratch a line into the floorboard. By nightfall, your tally is long. You burn the board. It doesn't help, because you're still listening. You're still matching. And deep down, a part of you finds it comforting. The rhythm is cruel, but it's consistent, in a world unraveling that matters. And that's the danger, isn't it? Not the horror, the comfort. You remember a time when noise was random. Children shouted, Doors slammed. Bells rang out of sync. Life was discordant and beautiful. Now everything clicks into place like gears. Everyone moves with just enough sameness to unsettle you. You see it even in gestures. A man scratching his chin, a woman tucking her hair, all in sync. Even the coughs. Even the coughs. You break into the archives. Not because you expect answers, but because you need to see if this has happened before. Truly before, not whispered folklore, but record. You find old parish logs, notebooks with dates so smudged they might as well be dreams. And there in the margins of a tax ledger from 1374, they danced on the bridge until the river took them. You flip to another. Movement without music. Over 40 souls lost. Some still twitch beneath the soil. Another. Fire did not stop them, nor salt, nor prayer. You sit among the ruins of history, eyes, burning hands, shaking heart, pounding with the slow, measured beat of inevitability. It always comes back. Maybe it never left. You leave the archives at dawn, and the city is waiting. The figure from the square is back, standing at the crossroads now, still hooded, still silent. But you feel it, an invitation. Not spoken, felt. You step back, 1 foot, 2, but your heel taps in perfect rhythm, and you freeze, because you're not sure anymore if that was your choice. You spend the rest of the day hiding in your attic. You don't eat, you don't drink, you barely blink. The sunlight creeps across the floor in a wide arc, then vanishes entirely, and still you sit motionless. You've placed rags under the door, covered the windows in burlap. No light, no sound, no rhythm. Just your heartbeat and the slight creak of the rafters as they settle above you. But even in silence, you're not alone. Your thoughts hum now, not loudly, but with a strange cadence, a repetitive looping of the same phrase over and over. You don't know when it started or where it came from. It's not even words, really, just syllables, nonsense, like a lullaby written in a forgotten language. You try to change the pattern, to think something disruptive, something jagged, but the loop always returns, and beneath it, a question. What if this is what you've always been for? You try not to answer. At dusk, the sound of footsteps returns, slow, rhythmic, close. You don't dare look, but you feel them beneath you on the floor below. The boards tremble slightly. A shelf rattles. A cup tips over and rolls in a circle before coming to rest. You cover your ears and squeeze your eyes shut, praying to stay unseen, unheard, unfelt. And then they pass. You exhale quietly, but a thought lingers. They weren't searching. They were waiting. They were reminding you. You haven't escaped. You've only paused. The next morning, the city is different again. The dancers are no longer twitching wrecks. They move in strange unison, now almost elegant, controlled, like a ballet composed by something that understands fear. Their arms sway with intention. Their legs arc through the air with practiced precision. Their eyes are focused as if they see something you don't. It's beautiful. And it's horrifying, because you can feel yourself admiring it. You stop watching from your window. You cover it completely, nailing the wood shut, blocking the light. You cannot afford beauty. Not now. Not when it's become the rhythm's mask. But you still hear it. Even more now. Inside you. You eat less. You sleep rarely. Your dreams are no longer dreams at all, just hours of standing in long corridors, music thudding through the walls, dancers brushing past you without faces. You wake with bruises, with dust on your knees, with your arms in strange positions, as though you've been moving in sleep. You begin to tie yourself down, not tightly, just enough. You wrap cloth around your wrists and loop it through the bed frame. One night your shoulder aches so badly you can't lift your arm. You tell yourself this is good. That pain means resistance, but you know it won't last, because the rhythm is evolving again. It no longer needs crowds. You see individuals now, people dancing alone in alleyways and gardens and doorways, each with their own tempo, their own strange choreography, some fast, some slow, some pulsing so faintly you wouldn't notice unless you knew what to look for. And you do because you've started doing it too. At first it was your fingers, a tap on the wall, a twitch at the table's edge. Then your jaw began clicking. Your tongue tapped the roof of your mouth in time with something you couldn't name. You caught yourself humming once, low, soft, tuneless. You bit your tongue hard enough to taste blood. But the rhythm doesn't need a melody, just attention. And you've been giving it plenty. The spiral on your wall darkens again. You peel back the cloth to find it has grown thicker, deeper, almost embossed into the stone. You touch it once and your hand tingles for hours. Not pain, not pleasure, just movement trapped and waiting. That night, your candle dances. You've seen it flicker before, but not like this. Not in time with your breath, not in sync with the faint tapping from outside. You stare at the flame until your eyes water, and then it splits into two. For just a second. Two flames, one rhythm, then one again. You don't sleep. At dawn, you open the door, not because you want to, because it's time. That word echoes inside you now, time. Not like a clock, but like a season of rhythm, a harvest of motion. You step into the street barefoot. The ground feels warmer than it should. The air hums. People line the streets, not all dancing, some just watching, nodding, swaying slightly. Others chant under their breath. You can't make out the words, but the cadence is unmistakable. Step, pause, step, pause, turn. You keep your arms stiff. You clench your jaw. You whisper lists again, names, flowers, numbers, bones. But your foot still moves, once, twice, then still. You return home and lie flat on the floor, arms wide, eyes closed, listening for a silence that never comes. You feel like a marionette left dangling between performances, and you wonder who holds the strings. That night, something changes again. The city sounds different, not louder, not quieter, just full of movement, full of breath, full of something approaching climax. You feel it in your spine, in your knees, in your teeth. You feel it in the sky. The stars pulse again twice this time. The moon looks like an eye. The spiral on your wall begins to glow, only faintly, only briefly. but it glows. You don't scream. You just whisper the only thing that feels true anymore. It's almost here. You don't wake anymore. You emerge. The difference is subtle, but it matters. Sleep no longer feels like rest. It feels like submersion, like slipping beneath thick water, soundless and slow, your limbs tangled in invisible threads. When your eyes open, it's not relief. It's a pause in the drowning. And when you move, it's always cautiously, as though you're afraid you might move too well. The city has changed again, not visibly, but in energy, in atmosphere. The air buzzes, not like bees or whispers or wind, but like expectation. Every breath feels charged. Every glance is longer. Every pause feels like the second before a drum hits. You realize you haven't heard a single scream in days. And that's what finally unnerves you. Because people are still dancing. You know they are. You've seen them. In doorways. On rooftops. In the fog near the river. But now they do it quietly. Elegantly. Like it's no longer something done to them, but something chosen. You see your neighbor in her window. She sways in a slow figure-8, arms, raised eyes closed. Not manic, not distressed, just present. Like she's listening to a lullaby only she can hear. And you want to hear it too. You bite the inside of your cheek until it breaks the skin. You turn away. The spiral on your wall pulses again. You don't cover it anymore. What would be the point? It's part of the house now. Part of you. It doesn't fade. It doesn't spread. It just waits. Like a keyhole waiting for the right shape to pass through it. You've caught yourself staring at it for hours, lost in the curves, tracing the lines with your eyes, your fingers, your breath. Each time it's harder to look away. You try to write. You open your journal and press charcoal to paper. But the words come in loops. You write the same sentence over and over, though you don't remember beginning it. When the music stops, the dance truly begins. You tear out the page. It bleeds black dust into your hands. You burn it. The flame curls around the words like it already knew them. That night you walk, not far, just the edge of the square, just to see. There are no torches, no priests, no musicians, just them, dozens. Hundreds, slowly twirling, some together, some alone. Their feet barely lift off the ground. Their arms rise like kelp in deep water. They move without collision, without noise, without urgency. It's the quiet that terrifies you. You wait for the sound, the scream, the sob, the collapse, but it never comes. Instead, one of them stops. A boy. He looks directly at you. His face is peaceful, pale, empty. And then he raises his hand and points to you. No sound. Just gesture. Several heads turn. You step back. And for the first time in months, you run. Your breath rasps. Your legs burn. You twist through alleys and knock over crates. You hear nothing behind you, but you feel it. A pull, like gravity, like guilt, like inevitability. You slam your door and fall to the floor, but your body doesn't stop. Your fingers keep moving, tapping, flexing, scraping circles on the wood. You scream finally, but even that has rhythm now. You bind your hands with rope. You whisper prayers you don't believe. You beg to no one. And still your knees bounce. still your shoulders roll. Your body remembers something your mind refuses to learn. The next day, your name is gone. You try to say it, but your tongue won't form the syllables. You write it down, but it comes out crooked wrong, like it's trying to be something else. You flip through your journal. Every page is spirals, nothing else. No dates, no names, no memories, just that endless loop growing tighter and tighter. You laugh, or maybe cry. It's hard to tell, because now your laugh has rhythm too. You stare at the ceiling and feel it press downward, not like a roof collapsing, but like a stage curtain descending. The end of Act 1. The beginning of something else. The city has begun to hum, not metaphorically, actually. At first it's just a vibration, low, deep, just beneath hearing. Then it builds. Windows rattle, wells tremble, the air warps. You see birds freeze mid-flight, then turn and fly in spirals above the square. You know what's coming. Everyone does. You see them gathering not with fear, but anticipation. They want it. They're ready. You're not. You're still fighting even now, even as your hands twitch in time with the trembling floorboards. You bind your legs. You bite down on cloth. You scream into the walls. But your body is only half listening now. The rest of it belongs elsewhere. You know you can't hold out forever. But maybe you can hold out a little longer. Long enough to see what comes next. Long enough to witness. Because this is no longer plague. It's ritual. It's a rehearsal for something sacred or something unspeakable. And you're still in the front row, barely breathing, barely you, but present. For now. The city no longer hides the rhythm. It wears it like a second skin. Even the architecture seems to sway. The rooftops dip slightly when you look up too long. The cobblestones feel uneven, not broken, just subtly shifted like they're bending to the beat. The alleys seem narrower, as though they're pushing you toward something, toward the center. You've avoided the square since the boy pointed at you, since the circle of heads turned. But you know it's still there, still spinning, still pulling. The rhythm doesn't chase you anymore. It invites you. And that's what makes it harder to resist. You try again to find logic in any of it. You tear apart old books, scratch symbols onto parchment, try to match the spirals to constellations or fever patterns or historical cycles. You find fragments, references to dancing plagues in Aachen, in Liège, in Metz. Always dismissed, always buried. One line sticks with you. When the body remembers what the mind forgot, the feet will not stop. You don't know what it means, not fully. But it echoes in your head when you wake. It pulses behind your eyes when you close them. And worst of all, you're beginning to believe it. Because the rhythm is no longer external. You feel it in your blood now, like a second heartbeat. No matter how still you sit, something moves inside you. You imagine tiny dancers in your veins, twirling between red cells. You imagine your bones humming like tuning forks. You imagine your breath counting time. You imagine too much. But imagination is all you have left. One afternoon, you watch a procession move through the city. Not a parade, not mourning, just motion. Dozens of dancers, silent, elegant, moving through the streets like flowing ink. Their faces are serene. They don't stumble. They don't collapse. They dance because it's what they are now, and the people let them pass. Some bow, Some follow. Some stand very still and wait until they're gone. You do all three. You don't know why. The figure in the cloak returns, no longer standing, now walking, slowly, deliberately, through the streets, through the watchers, through the square. Wherever they go, dancers bow slightly and shift their steps, as if adjusting their rhythm to match. They carry no staff, no crown, no torch, just presence, just gravity. You dream of them that night. In the dream, you stand at the edge of a vast stone circle. A pattern spirals outward from the center, and the figure waits in the middle, arms open. You take one step forward and wake with blood beneath your fingernails and dirt on your feet. You scrub for an hour, but the dirt stays. The next day, you stay indoors. You don't speak. You barely move. You try not to blink too often. You try not to feel rhythm. But rhythm doesn't need limbs. It lives in the breath now. You hold yours as long as you can. Your lips turn blue before you gasp again. At sunset, the spiral pulses one more time and splits. 2 spirals now. Twins. Mirrored. You don't know what it means, but your body shifts slightly involuntarily, as if adjusting to a new tempo. That night, the city moves as one, not in panic, not in chaos, in unity. You see it through the cracks in your shutters, the rise of arms, the tilt of heads, the sweeping of feet across stone. You hear it in the creak of beams and the distant thrum in the ground. You feel it in the air, as if the whole town is a living metronome. And you are offbeat. You try to stay still, but the cost of stillness rises. Pain builds in your knees, in your hips, in your throat. Your muscles cramp not from exertion, but from resistance. Your body wants to join, needs to. You whisper a list again: flowers, saints, dead pets, bones of the hand. You forget the middle, the end. You whisper nothing. The rhythm deepens, thickens, and then it stops. Not gradually, all at once. You freeze. The silence is not peaceful. It is total, and in that void, your ears ring. Not from sound, from absence. You step forward, unsure why. And there in your room, a line of dust forms across the floor in a perfect arc. A footprint. Your own, you don't know. You follow it. Outside, the sky is black, but not from night, from cloud. A single spiraling vortex above the square. You hear no thunder, but the earth pulses. Once, twice, a third time, and then the figure raises a hand, not to summon, to begin. You drop to your knees, unable to stand against it. Every part of you hums now. Every part moves, even in stillness. You realize this is not dance. This is alignment. You've spent your whole life out of rhythm. Now the rhythm has caught you, and it does not let go. You lie flat on the floor, trying not to breathe. The silence from the square is so vast, so absolute. It feels like a presence of its own, thick and full, like fog pressing against your skin. Your body buzzes beneath you, trembling without your permission. Not convulsions, not seizures, just motion. Deep, low, steady. Like you've become a string pulled taut across a vast, invisible instrument. You are no longer resisting. You're just waiting. And outside, the city begins to move again. Not with chaos, not with frenzy, but with terrible unity. The rhythm has changed again, slower now, more deliberate. You feel it in your spine before you hear it. One step, then stillness. Another, then stillness again. Like a ritualized march, like the prelude to something sacred, something final. You rise. You don't remember choosing to. You just do. Your arms move in slow arcs. Your fingers curl with intent. Your breath becomes staggered but controlled. It doesn't feel like possession. It feels like acceptance. And it terrifies you. You stagger backward, heart racing, fists clenched. But your feet hesitate. They want to return to the motion, to the rhythm. You are divided, mind against body, instinct against identity. You scream without sound. You sob without tears. And then you hear the others, from the rooftops, from the alleys, from the trees. They're humming, not a song, not a melody, but a tone pure, low, resonant. And each voice joins it seamlessly, perfectly spaced, as if they've always known when to begin. And beneath that hum, the figure steps forward, no longer hooded. Their face is featureless, not blank, impossible. Your eyes cannot hold it. The more you stare, the more your vision blurs. Your knees give out. Your ears fill with static. It is not a person. It is an idea made flesh, a shape made rhythm, a void wearing skin. They raise their arms, and every dancer stops. You stop. The hum ends, and for a moment, time disappears. No sound, no breath, no thought. And then the figure claps, once, and the world begins again. But differently, the city erupts not into chaos, but into pure synchrony. Every hand, every leg, every head moves as one. Streets turn into stages. Balconies become balconies no more. They're ledges for spinning, swooping, leaping. Dancers twist down stairwells and rise up flagpoles like vines. You see them not as victims now, but as vessels. The rhythm is no longer contained. It is the city. And you, still fighting, still trembling, realize what this is. Not a plague, not a punishment, a performance. You were always part of it. From the first breath, from the first heartbeat. The rhythm was waiting to align you, to conduct you, to complete itself through you. And now your body is ready. Your mind is tired. Your spirit cracked. You don't resist the next twitch or the next. You stand in your room, arms raised, spine curved, and you begin to move not wildly, not violently, but precisely, like someone dancing a part they were born to perform. And in that moment, you understand. There never was an infection. There never was a cure. There was only the rhythm. And now it has you. The spiral on your wall glows one final time, then disappears. You do not stop. You do not collapse. You do not die. You just dance. Forever. And now, you can rest. Let the rhythm fade into the background, soft as the hum of distant thunder beyond your window. Let your breathing slow, even if your thoughts still spiral gently like dust caught in candlelight. You've traveled through something strange tonight, a history so surreal it barely feels real. But it was, or something like it. People really did dance, and never stop. And the truth still has no answer. Some say it was mass hysteria. Some blame ergot in the grain. Some whisper of saints, of demons, of ancient music buried in the soil. But maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe what truly lingers is not the cause, but the feeling. That trembling sense that your body might one day forget who it belongs to. That your limbs might begin to move on their own. That the silence outside your window might not stay silent forever. But for now, you're safe. You're still. And the only rhythm is the quiet beat of your own breath, the gentle cadence of rest approaching. You made it through this strange little chapter of history. You stayed grounded. You stayed you. So now close your eyes. Use your charm. Let the world dim. Let the square empty. Let the dancers fade into the fog. And if you hear a faint tapping far away, it's just the wind.